Hi, Dr. Montaigne here, and I want to talk to you about genres. It's very important to learn the difference between different types of writing because every writing situation that you encounter will require you to use a different type of writing. So, here in this corner we have the imaginary, things that people make up in their brains and what we all recognized as somewhat unconnected with actual physical reality in the world. Under this category, we have fiction. That means it's been made up. Under fiction, there are various types of genres. That's novels, short stories, poetry, and then we have television, movie scripts, plays, that kind of thing. And under these major genres or types of writing, there are subgenres. There's literary novels that are serious and realistic. There's science fiction, fantasy, crime, comedy, and you're all familiar with those. Next on the scale is satire. Satire is actually a very important thing. We cannot have democracy without satire. And what I mean by that is, in this country, in America, we are free to make fun of institutions and governments and so on. It's based on the truth, but wildly exaggerated to bring out specific elements that we are critiquing in it. It uses comedy to critique reality, and we see this everywhere in books, television, movies, and so on. And as we know, there's kind of a gray area between this. There can be satirical novels and short stories and poetry and television that have many realistic elements but are entirely made up, or in satire based on real people and events and so on, but they're exaggerated and have many imaginary elements in them. Then we get to this gray area between fiction and non-fiction. And I put things like reality television, some forms of journalism like celebrity gossip magazines and tabloids, and lots of kinds of news actually, such as the Fox News channel, and they just push a lot of political propaganda and often don't use a lot of ethics. And a lot of our news media sort of panders to this kind of gray area. Next we have nonfiction based on the truth and reality, but it's not academic in nature. And there are tons of books and manuals and guides and commentaries and opinions, such as op-ed pieces in newspapers that just state a person's opinion on a topic, critiques like critiquing films and books and video games and so on. On every single subject under the sun, there's non-fiction, getting closer to the end of the spectrum here, which is the truth. Then we have serious journalism, also called the popular press, and it is popular. These kinds of sources that were based on truth in order to inform the public on news in the world. It's based on truth and ethical reporting, we hope. And this kind of journalism appears in books and newspapers, magazines, news programming that's trying to take it seriously, and so on. And then we have the truth. And this is the job of scientists and academics worldwide in good universities and colleges and think tanks and places where people are trying to find out the truth, but not only just reporting it, but also trying to discover it through the scientific method and through various means of studying reality. This is what you're going to be learning ultimately in your field of study in university, and also what we're trying to do in this class. Although you're not going to be generating original scholarship, you will be looking at other people's scholarship and reporting on it. So here we have sort of a category between this and this, where a lot of undergraduate students are doing their work between here and here. You'll be using some popular press, and some scholarly peer-reviewed journals in order to document your critiques and advocacies and arguments. So our job in composition class is often to find out what scientists and academics have found out about the truth through the scientific method and through studying the truth and reporting on that, so it fits somewhere in between here. This is where we're going to be hanging out in this class. Now, peer-reviewed journals are higher quality than news magazines and news programming and books and newspapers and so on. Peer-reviewed journal articles means that it was the information was sent out to experts blindly, not knowing who the author was, and they have replicated the experiments in some way or done an independent study or are expert enough on the subject in order to be able to tell whether it's truthful or not. There's a very interesting history to this. Several hundred years ago, when the academic system grew up the way we have it today in Europe and in America, in some other places in the world, scientists, the early scientists, such as Darwin and people who were before him, who were doing independent studies, experimenting, using the scientific method in a real serious way, which started about 500 years ago, to figure out truths about the physical world. This goes back to Aristotle and Plato, actually, but mostly Aristotle. And they used to write letters to each other about what they discovered in the various sciences such as biology, geology, and so on, when those fields were very young in the modern era. And they discovered that sometimes people would maybe fudge in order to become famous, or they weren't being ethical in their reporting, and so peer-reviewed journals started, meaning that the peers reviewed that information and can verify that it's truthful. And this is very, very important, especially in the medical field, so because our lives might depend on it. Anyway, we have a spectrum here from the imaginary all the way to the truth as far as we understand it in the physical world. Of course, there could be a whole philosophical discussion about what truth is and how we understand reality, but that's not going to be part of this lecture. And where you're going to be writing your research paper is somewhere in the middle between these two things, veering towards discovering what the truth is about your topic. So, I hope this was helpful and situated you for going into your research project.